Hi and welcome back to the studio. I'm going to do a watercolour this afternoon, but I want to show you something of the planning involved. This is a photograph I took on my camera, on my phone, this morning when I was out with the dogs. I liked it. I've got to hold it at a funny angle because of the way the light's hitting it and reflecting off the screen. But I like it because of the shapes involved. There's the shadows here, there's the trees coming in from that side, and these two trees here. Now I'm going to simplify it, and then I'm going to do a watercolour of it fairly loosely. Okay, so I'll swap over to the other camera and we'll see what I'm doing. Okay, there's the phone, here's the camera, here's a piece of just ordinary cartridge paper. Put the other light on so as you can see. You can't see the pictures well, but never mind. Okay, basically I'm just going to do a sketch. There's a lot of sky, so I'm putting the horizon line down there. I'm having these trees just to the left of centre, and I think I'll turn them into one tree. We've got all these bushy bits going off down there, and all across the middle there's this dead grass. Shadow will be going there. This side of the trees I'll put a rough shape, and this side will be in shadow. The pencil I'm using, by the way, is what they call a carpenter's pencil. Some art shops do them, but you can get them from B&Q or anywhere like that. Okay, so that's much lighter on that side. A very light in background, and on this side I've got two big trees. The light is coming from that way, so I've got these big sticky out trees here. At the moment all I'm doing is trying to simplify the composition, just putting in the darks and the lights. Lots of darks underneath there, a shadowy bit there, and that tree is what I like, comes out into the light apart from underneath that side. Here we've got all sorts of rough dead stuff, and then we've got these shadows. And that, believe it or not, is my sketch. I will put an extra tree there, but I'll join them closer so that we've just got one going on that side. Okay, that's my rough sketch. I'll go back to the other camera and show you my palette. Okay, my palette here is an old, don't know why I've got those out, an old tin one, and the paints I'll be using are mainly the ones down here, which are my Ron Ransony sort of ones. Lemon yellow, raw sienna, raw umber, light red, alizarin, ultramarine and Payne's grey, and they're the ones I'll mainly be using. Give them a spritz to make sure they're damp. It's very hot here today, even hotter with the lights on. So without further ado, get rid of the sketch. When I say get rid of it, I mean stick it out of camera. And now hopefully I'm going to go into a bit which will show you there. Make that a bit smaller. I'll move that further up because those are the ones I'll be using more than anything else. Actually I'll move it over there out the way. Okay, you can see what I'm mixing and see what I'm painting. Now, if I got both my lights on, it looks a bit dark. Right, okay, back to my sketch, and the line of the horizon is sort of along here. Trees there. Got this sticky out bit of tree and a big lumpy bit of tree. Technical term, lumpy bit of tree. Okay, and I won't bother drawing in all the shadows. I've just got a very faint outline. So now I'll be using, if I can find it, my favoritist brush, one of my favoritist brushes. There. This is a Stratford & York Jet. They don't make them anymore, but I think Pro Art do one fairly similar. It's a mixture of squirrel hair and synthetic. Okay, now I'm going to make in that pot a very, very pale ultramarine. Let's have a look at that. Yeah. Yeah. Forgot to wet the paper, too busy talking. So I used another Squirrel Mop. Get the paper really nice and wet. right the way down, let that run a little bit. Give it a few seconds just to catch itself up. Okay, I'm going to let just pulling out some little bits of cloud. Clean the brush, and all I'm doing is squeezing it between my fingers. Tidy up the bottom line, and sky done, more or less. Just pulling out a couple of bit, need a bit of shape rather. There, fading away nicely into the distance. Now I'm going to use one of my other favourite brushes, my little Squirrel Mop by Pro Art. Take this blue colour, move it next door, and into it drop some of the burnt umber. Which will grey that down nicely into that, just a hint of the raw sienna, which should give me a nice greeny brown or grey green or yucky colour. While this is still wet, I'm going to paint in those distant trees so that they will all fade into the middle, going straight through that tree. Let those bleed. Again, tidy up the bottom. Bit over here that I don't really need. Suck it out. Be a little bit bigger. that's that. Now and make sure I've got this bottom line nice and clean. Okay. This tray here, I'm going to mix pure raw sienna with just a hint of the umber. And now what I need to do is put lots of water at the far end This is why I wanted to get the bottom of those trees as dry as I could. And now and as I come forward, I want to put more colour into it. When I get to the closest bits, I'm adding a tiny touch of light red. Okay. Oh, I've got a drip up there. Good job. I don't need that bit. Now, in the foreground, there's more green grass because I know that it's close to the river. So what I'm going to do here is into my ultramarine, tiny spot of lemon yellow. Well, quite a lot of lemon yellow, and I'm going to paint that over the dead grass. And blend it in there. Okay. More or less done. So now I want to paint the light colour of the trees in. There, into that light green colour. No, that messed it up. I'll start from scratch. use my, if I can find it, yeah, my bigger Squirrel Mop. They take a tremendous amount of water. And this is the raw sienna. Into the raw sienna I'm putting quite a lot of lemon yellow. Tiny touch of ultramarine. Now, nice and wet. Back in with the little one now. I'm going to mix a dark colour, the ultramarine blue, same mix but darker. In fact, make a couple of them so we've got gradations. Okay, now you've got a very dark bit here. This is where I have great difficulty, because I want to fiddle, and what you really mustn't do is fiddle. You need to let the paint do its job. Pardon me. Now I'm going to let that sort itself out with a bit of luck. At the bottom, where it's really dark, ultramarine and some of the alizarin crimson and some of the lemon yellow make a really dark colour. still a bit wet for the what's it to show. Where's my little square one? There he is. Going back to the 1/2 inch flat, and again a little bit more of the yellow into this for these trees here, because there's already blue underneath them. Okay, now the darks, same colours, a little bit stronger. Put the shadows in where the sun isn't. Just using the corner of this brush, which comes to a nice point. That out. Now I'm going to my rigger and I mix a nice dark browny colour with the umber and ultramarine, up brown. There we go. Right, okay. I want these to bleed in not quite as much as that, but never mind. Okay, I've got a back run there in the trees, which is a shame, but it's not the end of the world, because I just mix up some more of the tree colour, the distant tree colour, and put them in again. Bit of digital art. Okay, got that. Now, for all that heat in the background, I need now to put some texture in it. That's all dry. So, clean out that palette. In fact, no. Add a bit more light red to it. Needs to be drier than that. Okay. Some light red and some raw sienna. Tiny touch of the umber. Now, I just want to barely touch this. Now this will dry a lot lighter, it's just a question of some texture into that dead grass. Just where it comes to the edge. Use a bashed brush. There we go. Now this foreground is a lot more lush. There's a lot of shadow coming in here. So I'm going to make a darker green. And to do that, shock horror, I'm going to use Hooker's Green. Which is a horrible colour on its own. But into that, I'm going to put some blue and a touch of sienna. And now I've got a darkish grassy green. I'm using some of the light tree colour into it as well. Just scrubbling that into there. Now into this, some light red. While that's still wet, also now touch of the alizarin into that green. Ooh, far too much. Alizarin crimson is a very, very powerful colour. Just letting all this join together, blend into itself. So we've got this dark foreground. Yeah. Mix. I'm not even going to mix it. I'm going to put some raw sienna into there. Dampen it down a bit. And into that we'll put some of the dark bits, just to stop it being too sudden a change. Okay, we've got some recession going on in that. What I'm going to do now is pause it and let it dry. Right, here we go. I'm back again. The painting is more or less completely dry. Covered at the bottom, so I'll just go into all painting. I think part of it is the light in here. It does actually, it's easy for me to say, but it does look better on the actual painting. Right, okay. While that's been done, I've cleaned my palette, because what I'm going to be doing now is called wet over dry. Up until now, everything's been wet in wet. Some wetter than other, but it's all been wet in wet. And what I'm going to do now is, I've just made this decision. I'm going to start using sable brushes and more control, because all that is the paint and the water doing its work. What I'm going to do now is hopefully bring it under control. Okay, I'm mixing up here using clean water. Still going to use the same colours. The hook is green. And into the hook is green. The lemon yellow. And then I've got a really bright summer green. And I'm going to use that as a sort of midway point. Okay, that's a greener green. And on here I'm going to make it even greener. Start with the lemon yellow. Same that well. This time, this time I've got, starting with the lemon yellow, into that, put a touch of ultramarine. I'm doing this trying to keep the layer very thin so that the underpainting shows through. Put some more blue into that, the shadowy bits, and some more water. More blue again, touch the alizarin, because I'm going back over there. I'll put That's the same blue, but I put a bit more, same green, I put a bit more blue, touch of alizarin, and now I'm putting in the hookers, again nice and thin and clean. Just reinforcing the shadows and putting some dark outline bits. That was a mistake. Okay, what I'm trying to do here is use the different parts of the brush. Just because your brush comes to a nice sharp point doesn't mean that you only use the tip. You use the side of it, the belly, all sorts. Making a very dark ultramarine and alizarin colour for the very dark bits underneath this tree. Okay, we've got those. Clean the brush, and I'm going to use a different brush. This is a brush I use a great deal. It's a Pro Art Maestro Da Vinci, and it's a sable brush, and it's a number 6, and it comes to a lovely point. Okay, now I'm going to mix a shadowy colour, and it's going to be alizarin crimson, a yellow ochre, not yellow ochre, ultramarine blue, alizarin, ultramarine, and because that is very, very savage, I'm going to put into it a touch of the brown. Now, I'm keeping this again nice and see-through. Put some of the real shadow inside the tree as well. And hopefully these shadowy bits will tie everything together. Okay, got lots of shadowy bits there. Now, over here, still using the same brush, mix some more. Some people say you have to mix loads of the colour because you'll never get it right again. Rubbish. You know what you put into it, and quite frankly, unless you're painting the whole page a single colour, it doesn't really matter if it's exactly the same. It's shadow. So now these shadows, this is quite a long lot of trees, so the shadows go right the way over there. Again, putting some of this up into the trees. Tying those shadows into the underneath to bed those trees down to the ground. Now, for coming forwards, I'm putting a little bit of light red into that. And this foreground is a lot rougher. Lots of thick shadow here. I'm putting it very thick for a reason. I'll think of it in a minute. Yep. Very thick and dark. Because here I have secret weapon, little piece of credit card. So we've got some loose bits in the front. Now it's just little details I want to do next. Finish it off. Going back to my rigger, and I'm going to mix a really dark. Keep forgetting I'd turned the other thing off. This is Payne's Grey, which is nearly black, and with it some of the brown, and there you've got a really thick purpley brown colour. And with this I'm going to put in some bits of branches just where they show here and there. Same in here. If you remember, about 3 days ago, it seems now, just a couple of half an hour maybe, I put these brown bits in, and now I'm putting shadowy bits to the side of them. Now, somebody once said, well, quite a lot of people have said, that in watercolour you have to paint dark onto light. It's not strictly true. There's fiddles. What I'm doing here, I've got a colour called Charles Evans Sand, made by Dale Rowney especially for Charlie Evans, and it's the colour of sand on Northumbrian beaches, but it's also a very opaque colour, and with it I'm going to mix some yellow ochre, which is also a fairly opaque colour. And this is where I very often cheat doing watercolours. So there we go, Charles Evans sand and yellow ochre, sorry. And what this will do, it won't stay that bright, but it will be lighter and it's opaque enough for you still to be able to see it. If you don't have any Charles Evans sand, you can buy it off Charlie's website where it's slightly cheaper. I think you can get it from you can get it from Dale Rowney. It's a very, very handy thing to have, and I'm not being paid for saying this. But if you see this, Charlie, I am advertising. But it is very handy to have in your paint box. Does all sorts of things. It lightens any colour you want it to lighten. And you can do these light over dark touches. I say it doesn't stay that bright. It will tone down like any watercolour, but it's very handy for just picking bits up. Adding some lemon yellow to it now, which is also fairly opaque, and little bits of grass. I've put too much water in with it now, so it's not thick enough to sit on top. There. Now, my pièce de résistance. I have up here a colour called Perol Red, which is gorgeous. It's pure red pigment, more or less. And add a touch of brown to it. It's still very strong. And I'm just going to put my usual dog walker, my little touch of red. And some blue. No, because it's not made up of light from the sky, I'm going to use some cerulean blue. Not that you'll be able to tell. Tiny little black dot for the hair. A little shadowy bit. And a little doggy. Two little doggies. There. And mix up some light red into that colour, which is me light colour. I'm just going to put a path going through there. And that, I think, is that. Maybe just a little bit. A very peely welly shadow at the bottom of those trees. I'm going to put a little bit of more green in those ones. There, now I'm fiddling. I think that's it now. It's a demo piece, it's not great art, but it tells a story and it gives us a nice sunny feeling, I think. Just take the tape off. I'll pause it while I take the tape off. There we go, it's got its tape off. Unfortunately it only just fits, but you can see it's got tidy edges The highlights, I feel, transform that, and it's so easy to do. I'll just put a few more in there. There we go. See little tiny bits of highlight in there, just with very thick pale paint. If you don't have Charles Evans sand, if you don't have anything that's pretty opaque, you can use gouache for that, or a touch of white gouache mixed with a colour, and that'll do it. Okay, so that's the end of that for now, and I'll see you next time.